द कश्मीर फाइल जहाँ को नहीं गोटे बड़ चर्चा गोटे भाइब्रेशन सृष्टि होता आमर समाज रे कारण तादरे जो कलाकार माने अभिनय करुले जो चरित्र अभिनय करुले भर अनेक गुड़े एमती चरित्र थिला जे काल्पनिक नथिला जे जीवंत थिला एवं से चलचित्र अनेक गुड़े वार्ता भी आमको देछि एवं ताकु नहीं विभिन्न प्रश्न अच्छी जेतबले फिल्म टी रिलीज होता से समय सकारात्मक चित्र तार जी आसूला सामना को तार सकारात्मक दिग जी सामना को आसूला ताकु नहीं लोक मैंने समालोचना करने को भी पछे नथिले एवं प्रश्न भी पचरा जाउथला से फिल्म निर्देशकों को से फिल्म कलाकार मानू एवं से फिल्म को जे लिखिछंती तांकु भी तो कथा होछि जेतबले कश्मीर फाइल बाबद रे आमे आलोचना करूछे ताहले आमे मंच उपरे तांकु ही आज पाइछे जे से फिल्म निर्माता जैसे फिल्म को तैयारी करिछंती आम सम्मुख को आनी गोटे हिस्ट्री आई कैन से डेयरली ए डार्क हिस्ट्री बट सेटा समस्त सामना को आसबार थिला एवं आसी से फिल्म जरिया रे ताकु नहीं जेतक तथ्य रही आलोचना होती समालोचना भी होती ये मंच से सजी कारण आमे तांको से प्रश्न करिपरिबा एवं आज सीधासलख भाव में आम गहन उपस्थित हो से तार जवाब रखिबे आज
बिल्कुल when you decide to make a film on an extremely sensitive issue that tells the tale, the pain of Kashmiri Pandits who were suddenly made homeless, I believe you are ready for the criticism that you might face, and the film did face it, from being hated, trolled, called a propaganda film by many, yet billions of people in India loved it, showed it the response, the honor that the hard work deserved. And finally, the film received Best Film Award at the prestigious Dada Saheb Phalke, which could be the best honor for any film. तेणु प्रत्येक कष्ट पर सफलता थाए जितेबले भी कौन सी जिनस कंट्रोवर्सी रे आसे ता भितर किछि तथ्य थाए ता भितर किछि इंटेग्रिटी थाए बोली ताकू से भली कसटी पत्थरर सामना करने को पड़े केमिति थिला से फिल्म तैयारी करिवार अनुभूति काहीकि कश्मीरी पंडित को लेकिन एभली गोटे सेंसिटिव फिल्म तैयारी करने को इच्छा कले प्रोड्यूसर एभली कहानी को सकारात्मक भाव में देखा से कहानी को लोकों पाखे पहुँचाइबा रिसर्च डेवलपमेंट रे केते कष्ट होइथिला फिल्म शूट करिबारे केते कष्ट होइथिला एक्टर मानकु कन्विन्स करबा पई केते कष्ट होइथिला जो माने प्रकृति रे कहि परिबे ईदर द प्रोड्यूसर द राइटर डायरेक्टर एंड आमे से मानकु ए विशेष सेशन रे नै आसीचु एभली गोटे फिल्म विषय रे चर्चा करबा पई जो फिल्म संपर्क रे चर्चा सारा भारत रे सारा विश्व रे और विशेष करी श्रेष्ठ फिल्म रो दादा साहेब फाल्के अवार्ड 2023 पाइला परे फिल्म टी आहुरी बेसी चर्चित होईची. So I'll take this opportunity to invite on stage the much talked about director Vivek Agnihotri, and with him the actress, writer and producer of the film Pallavi Joshi. Congratulations team for winning Dada Saheb Phalke Award as the best film of 2023. That was a lot of hard work, and as they say, hard work pays. So the team is here. And we have a very special AV for this film. Can we have the AV please?
विवेक रंजन अग्निहोत्री चलचित्र जगतर एक परिचित ना तांको लिखित एवं निर्देशित द काश्मीर फाइल्स चलचित्र देश तथा विदेश रे चहल सृष्टि करिथिला. एकाधार रे से जने सिनेमा निर्देशक, प्रयोजक, स्क्रीन राइटर एवं लेखक. 1973 रे मध्य प्रदेश ग्वालियर रे जन्मग्रहण करथिले विवेक अग्निहोत्री. 2005 रे फिल्म चॉकलेट माध्यम रे से निर्देशना क्षेत्र रे पाद थापिथिले. परे अनेक चलचित्र रे से निर्देशना दैछंती. हेले 2019 रो द ताशकेंट फाइल्स चलचित्र तांको आनी देथिला बड़ सफलता. द ताशकेंट फाइल्स चलचित्र पई बेस्ट डायलॉग कैटेगरी रे तांको जातीय चलचित्र पुरस्कार मध्ये मिलिछि. बुद्धा इन ए ट्रैफिक जाम तांको रचित एवं निर्देशित एक चर्चित सिनेमा. एही चलचित्र निर्माण समय रो अभिज्ञता को नै अर्बन नक्सल द मेकिंग ऑफ बुद्धा इन ए ट्रैफिक जाम पुस्तक से रचना करथिले. सेंट्रल बोर्ड ऑफ फिल्म सर्टिफिकेशन बा सीबीएफसी रो से जने सदस्य. 1997 रे विशिष्ट अभिनेत्री पल्लवी जोशी को विवाह करथिले विवेक अग्निहोत्री.
Ladies and gentlemen, can we have a big round of applause for the team that is making a lot of noise for making such a wonderful film, The Kashmir Files. And I'll request founder, Olive Ridley Media, Samar Pratap Nayak, to join us on stage and moderate this wonderful session. Can we have a round of applause for the moderator and panelists, please?
Good afternoon. I hope you're comfortable. Yes. So, without much further ado,
where else can be one can be more comfortable than Odisha? So, the
of
most
course,
comfortable place in India, yeah.
of course. So, sir and madam, moderating this session is a multitude of emotions for me personally. And I'll tell you why. Because
Easier for you.
Right. So moderating this session for me is a multitude of emotions because I'm not moderating this session as an ardent admirer of Bollywood and the Indian film cinema, but rather as a socially conscious citizen of Bharat, India, right? And when we watch your movies, right, there's so many questions that pop up in our heads. So hopefully during this session, we'll be able to plunge a little deeper into those questions that I'm hoping will resonate with the rest of the crowd. And while we do that, I'll also try to understand that as a filmmaker, you have made movies despite the backlash, despite threats of physical violence, trolling, be it in real life or on the digital forum, right? And you still made these movies, right? Both of you, in your own right. What motivated you, and what key takeaways you could give to the new filmmakers who are coming into this field, and how can they navigate this landscape without being overwhelmed, without being scared or terrified that agar main is topic ke bare mein baat karunga, what kind of backlash do I have to? Because you are a veteran, right? You're a maverick, so to say. It's not easy, but still, I think you are accustomed to it. But someone who is just making his first feature film, it must be a daunting task. So what do you have to say to those folks, to those little kids?
You want both of us to answer?
Please, both of you.
Okay, so first of all, thanks for inviting us here. I'm really, really honored and privileged. Thank you. And wonderful audience here. See, I never planned to be a filmmaker. I was in advertising and in a totally different world. But life takes you to unknown territories, so that's how I came into films. And my first encounter with the film, we were trying to make a small film called Arambh. And we had signed Mr. Nasiruddin Shah and Rajit Kapoor, both National Award winning, one of the finest actors of that time. And that film was basically probing into Bofors, because it was back in early 90s, I think, or late 90s, late 90s. At that time, Bofors was something which everybody wanted to know what happened behind the scenes. And there were journalists who were telling two different kinds of stories. And in so-called film industry, nobody cared about it. People thought it's a sensitive subject. So we researched and explored and made it, and finally we got these two actors. But at the last minute, the financiers or the producers backed out, and they said, this is a very daring, courageous subject, and we will be in trouble, so we don't want to make it. And that thought lingered till today. I remember that. And it was a very difficult journey, 1.5 years. I was sitting at home, no income, nothing, pursuing a good film. And it was a brilliant film, because it was a film about the socio-political scenario of that time. But then somebody came to me and said, hey, can you make a film provided you take these and these stars? And when I went to meet those stars for the same film, they said, no, ye sab kya bakwas banate ho? That time a new film had come called Usual Suspects, and somebody said, why don't we make this? And within 15 days, I was able to do multi-starrer casting for Chocolate in 15 days flat. And in 1.5 months, we were shooting with vulgar budgets in London. And that was perhaps the first film which was shot fully in London from India. So it was easy then, because the day that film released, Chocolate, it had Anil Kapoor, Irfan Khan, Sunil Shetty, Imran Hashmi, Arshad Varsi, 5 big huge stars with big budget. I said, oh, it's so easy to make these kind of films, because no star was willing to work without watching a DVD of some Hollywood film. It's a truth. And the second film, the day this film released, Ronnie Screwvala called me and he said, why don't we make some film? I went there with a very small idea, because I had heard about some Indians living in Southall in London, and they couldn't pay some £90 to the county, and they couldn't retain their own football club called Southall Football Club. And I found it very fascinating that for £90 we lost a football club. But then the way it is, I wanted to make a small, meaningful film about the community in Southall. But then everybody said, let's make it big, 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 big. You should be making big cinema. And then stars came into it, that became. But after I finished Goal, it was a huge production again in London. Then I said, no, hang on. This is not why I came here. I didn't come here to tell stories which all these stars want to tell about themselves, about their own image. I am here to tell real stories, and which is stories which everybody else is scared to tell. It took a lot of time. Then I quit film industry, and I was sitting at home for 2 years. I had no work, And so I started giving lectures in various universities, and since my background is management, so related to that, I was running a small course in Indian School of Business in Hyderabad, which is one of the 10 best business schools in the world, called I Am Buddha for Global Leadership, just to tell students that yes, you are also born with the same Buddha as Gautam Buddha, you are as enlightened, so you cannot become CEO of a company if you don't discover your Buddha. And it so happened that one day we were discussing, and those students said that we have to make a documentary on Naxalism. And they were glorifying Naxals in that. And since I had firsthand knew what Naxal politics was, so I said, no, if you want to let's make a different film. And that documentary became a feature film. For 1 crore, we made Buddha in a Traffic Jam. And then when I wanted to show it, there was so much of resistance. It was stuck for 6 years. And then I realized this politics is real, and somebody has to fight it out. Otherwise, we'll keep telling fake stories which do not even represent India. And then Pallavi, and her contribution is immense. मैं ऐसे नहीं कह रहा हूँ लोग कहते हैं behind every successful man or something, or my wife did it. Not like that, because she's senior to me when it comes to filmmaking. She understands film business better than me. Pallavi told me, if we have to make a production house, then we should be committed to making certain kind of films, and whatever happens, we should not compromise. And same thing happened. We never compromised. If you look at the Tashkent files, we not even once compromised. Who would imagine 9 old people sitting in one room and for 2 hours just chatting in a dark room? Kashmir Files, who can imagine you can make a non-starrer films which will do 350 crore rupee business? Similarly, we are now making the vaccine war. Nobody would dare make this film which we are making, and it has Nana Patekar, Pallavi Joshi, Anupam Kher, and lots of talented actors. Then we are making Delhi Files. So we are researching for 3-4 years on one film. We put in our money. We don't take money from anybody in the industry. So we are just committed to make research-based films which are about India, the stories which everybody else is scared to tell.
Why do you not take money from anybody in the industry today?
Because that is funny money, and that funny money corrupts you instantly. If you are going to give me money, then you will dictate your own terms. So it's better to make sacrifice. मैंने तो अपनी needs ही एकदम कम कर ली. अगर आप मेरी पिछली 5 साल की photos देखें, मेरे पास 2-3 pants हैं, 2-3 shirts हैं, और ये jacket है. In fact, in social media, and I have cut out color from my life. I wear only black clothes, so I don't have to choose. In fact, people troll me on social media. कहते हैं देखो ये आ गया, वही कपड़े रोज पहनता है. So I have cut down my needs. Actually, I have cut down my needs. So I have more money to spend on films than on myself.
Brilliant. Ma'am, आपने जवाब नहीं दिया, लेकिन I'll ask you another question, although I wanted you to answer that one also, which is that your character in Kashmir Files, more or less this conversation is going to revolve around Kashmir Files here and there, so I hope you're okay with that. So your character in Kashmir Files is a curious one, right? Wherein I'm assuming that you play a character whose leaning is not the same as you, like Pallavi Joshi. Your leaning is not the same as that character's leaning. Is it fair to assume that? Okay, so was it difficult to get into the skin of a character you don't empathize with, you don't understand? Was it difficult? And how was that journey?
Good evening, everyone. Before I answer your question, I must tell everyone here that I used to take great pride in thinking that I have traveled the lengths and breadths of India, but this is the first time I'm coming to Bhubaneswar. And I don't know how I completely missed out on this city, but thank you for inviting me here. It's a beautiful place, and I hope to come here again because this is a very short stay, but I want to come here and explore more. Now, to answer your question, see, there are two things. Whenever you approach a role, there are two ways that you approach it. A, you look at the role from a very personal point of view, and B, you look at it from an actor's point of view. Now, let's talk about the actor for a while. Basically, the challenge for any actor comes when we are given characters which we have nothing in common with. And that is actually the beauty of acting also, the profession. Because you manage to get under the skin of so many different characters. You get to live a lot of different lives in one lifetime. So in that way, Radhika Menon was, I was the happiest because it was like one of the strongest characters and it was the most complex characters. So as an actor, I was so happy that Vivek trusted me with a complex character like this. But, knowing how I look at the world and knowing what I, think about the current situation that the world and India especially is going through, I don't like Radhika Menon at all. And what had happened was, the reason it became a little difficult for me was my shooting was done on the last 2 days of the film. We shot the entire film, and the last 2 days we shot the college. Now, before that, we had, 4 years before that, we had gone through this entire research for Kashmir, where we had interviewed about 700 people. So we had taken testimonies of people who had lost their near and dear ones. Someone had lost their father, some mother, some brother, some their mamaji. And one incident was ghastlier than the other. So for this entire period, we had lived with this tragedy. And the one question which kept coming to our minds was why this news never came out. We always knew that there is terrorism in Kashmir, and the people of Kashmir are suffering. But the narrative that came out was that army was suppressing them, and hence they are becoming terrorists. So it was a very warped kind of a message which was coming. And to hear this truth after 30 years, and to know that it's not just a bunch of people, an entire community has been thrown out, has been, so brutally tortured. 30 years later, a lot of them still suffer from PTSD. And to hear all those tales, and then, having read the script and seen all those scenes that our actors were performing, and to see all those characters come alive, it was a very difficult shoot. So most of the times when we were sitting in front of the monitor, when Mutunda was saying a line, or when Prakash Belavadi was saying a line, these were the actual lines which were told to us by the victims. So we always had tears in our eyes. And after having gone through 30 days, 32 days worth of shooting of all this pain, comes a scene where I'm suddenly, negating this whole thing. For me, the story doesn't even exist. For me, this is false. So it did become very difficult. And 2 days before the shoot, I remember I told Vivek I'm not coming to the sets because I was, I couldn't sleep. I was palpitating because I knew that if Radhika Menon doesn't come across the way she has to, then the whole film is just going to come down. And Chinmay had performed brilliantly as the terrorist, Chinmay Mandlikar, who plays Betta. So I took 2 days, and then 2 days later, I approached this character. And I'll also tell you in a nutshell how I approached her. For me, she became an enigma. If you see her from the outside, she's a wonderfully interesting character. You go to her place, her home looks like a museum. There's always wine and cheese flowing, you know. There's music, there's literature. She talks about politics. She's such a strong, opinionated woman. She's always well turned out. You know, she uses her femininity to its advantage. And it's a great, way to spend an evening with. You know, she's great company. So I would love to spend an evening with Radhika Menon. Why not? And that's how I approached her. Because back in the days when I was growing up, villains did a lot of villainy. When Amrish Puri necessarily spoke the lines like, Duryodhan ke liye to yahi sab kuch hoga. And I certainly knew that, that is not how, she should not come across as the villain. In fact, till halfway through the film, people should be perplexed whether she's right or wrong or left, whatever, So, yes, it was, a pleasure doing that character, but emotionally, it was a roller coaster.
I think you put it beautifully that a lot of people underestimate that women have soft power, as they put it, right? They're not necessarily going to pulp you, but they're going to use this to their best of advantages. My first question to you, sir, is, and this is my first legitimate question to you, is that I was watching this interview of yours recently, and someone asked that Kashmir Files gets a lot of its criticism that it has painted the minorities in a negative light, to which your response was that that can't be the case because the first character in the movie is a child who is a Muslim boy, and you show him in a positive light because he helps the protagonist, if I'm right in assuming.
See, okay, I'll tell you what. The problem is that in this world now, because of social media, anybody comes from anywhere, asks some question, and media has also formed this tendency to pick that uninformed, and I would say it very casually, very stupid, dumb kind of question, and then we make it a mainstream question, and therefore what is happening is we are dumbing down everybody in the process, which is why a film like Kashmir Files, which should be a normal, becomes extraordinary because nobody talks about it. Now, if the film is against minority, who was the minority in Kashmir? Right, number one. Okay, second thing, people say that you have not shown that Muslims were also killed. And nobody, the people who asked this question also know the answer very well. Only those Muslims were killed who were with Bharat or India, who were against terrorism. And if it was such a oppression of Muslims, why didn't even one Muslim left Kashmir? Right? Now the thing is, it's in a fake secularism, absolutely bogus secularism, in a democracy which actually is a mobocracy, which is ruled by the mob, and we call it democracy, a constitution which has a fundamental... Do you know, does anybody here know that Indian constitution mentions the word minority only once? It gives right to life equally to everyone. And do you realize that before 1992, there was no minority commission or ministry of minorities? There is a Supreme Court judgment of, I think, 2002 or 1990, my pass phone mein likha hua hai, exact date mujhe nahi pata, but it's a very recent, not very old, which says that there cannot be any definition of in this country of minority nationally, because you are Odia.
Yes, sir.
If you come to Maharashtra, you become a minority. And minority in India, Indian constitution does not recognize religious minority. Indian constitution says that because the states were divided on the linguistic basis, therefore linguistic minorities are the real minorities. A Sikh in a Gurdaspur may be part of majority, but in Chandigarh, just few kilometers away, he becomes a minority. Okay, so it's a very crazy kind of a definition, but because because of this whole problem came because 1991, when the Ram Janmabhoomi Andolan was taking place, to neutralize that, Congress started all this appeasement politics. And it is not about Hindu Muslims. If you see Hindu Muslims, which India is the only nation in the entire world. And I am saying it with 100% evidence. Anybody who travels anywhere, today you go to Germany and you ask them about the refugees, they don't live together. They don't interact together. They don't know each other's customs, language, nothing. In America, they talk so much about secularism. But Americans have zero idea about Islamic culture. They know nothing about them. India is the only country which knows about Islam, perhaps sometimes better than a lot of lot of Muslims. And vice versa. Muslim people write about Krishna and about Ram, and in Awadh they write constantly about it. Ghalib has written it, Mir has written it, everybody has written, and Indian scholars both ways. And we interact so much with each other. In real life, nobody has a problem. The producer of Kashmir Files was a Muslim. The line producers were Muslims. That little baby who's playing that Krishna is a Muslim girl who played a boy, actually, little boy in the film. Our main costume designer is a Muslim. Muslims have loved it. I meet so many Muslims who take pictures with me and say, we can't speak for certain reasons, but that film is so true. We are getting bad name because the intellectuals of Islamic society keep quiet when it comes to terrorism. Ask any young Muslim boy and girl, they suffer every day. When they go outside, in India, people don't look at them like that. The moment they step in Europe and America, everybody thinks he's a terrorist. They suffer because people keep quiet. This film has opened conversation, right? So in India, there are a lot of myths about this minority and majority. It doesn't work like that. The people anybody who has a gun is more powerful than even the majority. And okay, if it's about majority and minority, Sanjay Sharma, who was killed few days ago, just 4 or 5 days ago in Kashmir, whose little daughter was crying, that 5-year-old whose picture has gone viral, was he majority or minority? Somebody has to answer that. Which means majority has to be scared in this country by that definition. But I don't buy that. So therefore, I think Kashmir Files, we never pretended. We always said this film is based on the interviews of the victims of the genocide, and which are Kashmiri Hindu victims. We never claimed this film is about everybody. I'm sorry if I don't make those kind of secular films.
All right. Beautifully answered, sir. My next question is to you, ma'am. Have you ever felt anxiety? Have you ever been scared for each other's lives? Have you been terrified every time, Agnihotri ji steps out of the house? Are you terrified? And if you are, then how do you deal with your anxiety?
Well, I will be lying if I say that no, it doesn't matter to me. But we had a long discussion which lasted over a few weeks before we made the Kashmir Files. And as the society stands today, as the world stands today, we knew that there's going to be a certain amount of backlash over this film, because we are not exactly trying to appease anyone in this film. We are talking about the harsh truths. And subsequently, as the threats started increasing, of course, you get anxious. But the one thing that went in my favor is that I'm not on social media. So I don't know the amount of threats that actually come every day. But yes, as an aware person, I knew that it's not going to be easy for my husband. And believe you me, since we started Kashmir Files, there must have been only 1 or 2 occasions when I've left Vivek alone. I'm constantly with him. I don't know why.
That's why you, oh my God, even I didn't know.
I mean, it's not that I'll be able to protect him or anything, but it's just that I'm always so concerned and careful that I always want to be there. I want to be the first person to help in case anything happens. And my children know this very well. So yeah, so there is always, I'm always, walking on hot bricks.
Okay. Sir, on a lighter note, I want to ask you, what is your obsession with the word files? Tashkent files, Delhi files now, Kashmir files. Files से क्या आपका इतना मतलब क्या आपका नाता है?
His father was a government employee, you see.
मैंने इतने सारे मुद्दे फाइल्स में दबे हुए देखे इस देश में कि मुझे लगता है कि कई बार ये जो देश है ना फाइल्स के बोझ से ही दबा हुआ है. So that's why these files, and no wonder this word has become so popular. I'm not taking the credit, but a lot of people on social media give me that credit, that when Elon Musk had to take out the Twitter documents, he also called that the Twitter files.
Brilliant. Ma'am, आप भी trolling face करते हैं, obviously, in equal measure, but your trolling is very different. Because you're a woman, the nature of trolling is more, how do I say? It's because you're a woman, and if you know what I mean, it can be violent in nature. It could talk about how they're going to, how your modesty will be kind of violated. So do you want to comment on that, and how do you deal with that?
See, as I told you, I'm not on social media.
Okay.
So these comments don't reach me.
Okay.
A few of my friends keep telling me to be careful. And sometimes when my fancy takes, I do go on Twitter and, other platforms, Facebook and stuff, and I check it out once in a way. But by then that news is so old that, some other news, there is another breaking news which has happened in the last 24 or 48 hours. So
any real life incidents where?
No, not really.
Thank God.
See, trolling, I'll tell you, trolling is a organized business now. People are paid for trolling, and they don't attack anybody who's not on social media. They only attack those people. They want to hurt you. It's kind of, they want to scare you. They want you to shut up. They want to silence you. So what are the things? First, they were attacking me. Then there were fatwas and all that. They said, but this man, you can't silence you. Then they will start taking out they'll hurt your family. Recently, they started hurting my daughter, and then you find out that it's being done by organized people. And with my daughter, everything started happening when there's a fact-checking company called Alt News. And they started picking up her photos, and they started attacking me with that. And once I realized that, I said, this is all organized. And how do you fight it? I mean, they want to demoralize you. This is simple politics, and because we have dumbed down the society so much that we have brought it to a level where anybody, anywhere on the street, I mean a person who has come out after 14 years of imprisonment for murder, he comes out and he says, this man is a liar, and the whole world says, yeah, he's a liar, he's a liar, he's a liar. So in this you need, I deal with it with a lot of spirituality, and I am spiritual and philosophical by nature, so to me it doesn't matter too much.
I have last two questions before we wrap up this session. The next question is that, do you think vernacular cinema, let's say Odia could make a movie which explores socio-political issues the way you do? And if they do, would you want to collaborate with OTV perhaps in making such a movie at some point of time?
Of course, I don't have to. I just made a proposal to her, and I don't have to collaborate, but stop using the word vernacular, because vernacular word was used by British people for inferior people. So we were vernacular for them. So a lot of people don't know. Even I used to use this word until 2 years ago when somebody pointed it out.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So never use this word vernacular. Odia is not a vernacular language. It's one of the finest, great language. And if whatever, and for me, our company is called I Am Buddha, so for me it would be criminal and to say that. And this is a great land, one of the greatest places in India. And trust me, this is perhaps there are only 2 states in India which are the most peaceful, wonderful, great people. And the moment you step there, you feel peace. Everybody is at ease. And there are only 2 states. One is Odisha, and the second is where I studied, Madhya Pradesh. Okay? And I am really surprised that why Odia cinema is not in the mainstream. If there is anybody who wants to do work in Odia language, please, you can contact me, whatever is within my power. I'm not a very big person. We are very small. We are struggling. We are just taking baby steps to create a 100% indigenous, Indian, rooted in India production house. If we can help you. I just offered her if they want to associate in vaccine war, because we want our films to go everywhere, and I am a great advocate for regional cinema. So I think yes, Odia cinema should, but uske liye ek kaam karna padega. You'll have to go and dig and pick up Odia literature. Make films on your literature. You'll never go wrong. Never go wrong.
So a fun fact for you, because we were on the topic of language, Odia is one of the 6 classical languages in India. Yeah. Sanskrit, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam.
I would say 6. I would say one of the 6.
One of the 6, right? One of the 6. Sanskrit, Tamil, Telugu, Malayalam, Kannada, and Odia. So the last question to you is that, sir, aap log se na inspire hoke, I have become sort of an activist now, right? And I have my own brand of activism, right? I want to talk about things that Odias and Odisha should be proud of, okay? So before I take your leave, I want you to aid me in my brand of activism. I will tell you 2 lines, and you'll have to repeat it after me. Could you do that with me? Not in Odia, it's in English. And surprisingly, it's also related to language, something we're talking about. So you'll have to look into the camera, and as I tell you, line after line, you'll have to repeat it. Okay, ma'am, you too. So, if Odias talk in Odissi,
Okay, if Odias talk in Odishi,
then Punjabis talk in Bhangra.
I would twist it. If Odias talk in Odishi, then Bhangra talks in Punjabi.
Okay, if Odias talk in Odissi, then Punjabis talk in Bhangra.
Thank you, ma'am. There was just a lot of people who are not familiar with Odisha. They confuse that. We speak in Odissi. Guys, it's a dance form. It's not a language.
No, but again, speaking about the state,
I was saying, in Delhi talks in Hamari Mange Puri Karo.
No, it's actually, as Vivek said, we should concentrate on literature here. You have, Odissi dance is one of the few classical dance forms of India. There is literature here. I mean, any state which has art, literature, and theatre alive can always thrive. And that is, I think, what makes Bangla films, Bangla film industry so big, and that's what makes Marathi film industry so big, because, people haven't left literature there. So as Vivek rightly said, this is a great place to be. And one thing is very good, that there will never be an Oriya file, But Shantipriya state hai ye, and I hope it remains like that.
Thank you, Vivek ji.
Thank you very much.
Ma'am. Thank you for keeping us company. And
somebody should make a film on how the Konark temple was made. It's very important. One should make, and this will be like a global film. So somebody, if wants to initiate the idea, I can help you take it forward.
I have another idea. Rasgulla files. That's the intent, sir. Anyway, sir, thank you. Thank you. It was a pleasure talking to you. Guys, a huge round of applause.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vivek Agnihotri, Madam Pallavi Joshi and Sama. That was such an insightful talk. And this shows the commitment of filmmakers and actors about the piece of art they make, that they would take any amount of pain. They would not be afraid of being trolled, hated, even abused physically, mentally. And they would give justice to the film they are making. And they will show the world the right perspective behind the story. Congratulations once again,
and
cast,
thank you,
crew,
Sama,
and
for this
makers of the Kashmir File. And the star of our galaxy, Sama did add a lot of information, bringing the right side of the story from the makers and the actors. I think they deserve one more round of applause. Everyone, please.